So my name's Elizabeth Barron, and I'm a senior manager leading solution architecture for enterprise at Unity. And so I'm really honored to talk with you today, to be here to share my experiences about working in industry and the digital transformations that can be realized. And I know that digital twins at Unity enable many industries to realize benefits for not only this transformation for their business, but also making an impact on the efficient use of resources for product creation and manufacturing. And I'll definitely show some examples of that, but I was always very mindful about the resources that were being squandered building prototypes that did not need to be built. So there's a very heavy impact regarding sustainability. So one of the cool things about digital twinning is you can create anything. You can use any platform to visualize. So like you can use your mobile, you can use a headset, a desktop, a tablet is like a window into the world. And what's cool is you can free your imagination and you can be unbounded by the constraints of the natural world. And what I mean by that is you can really ideate, you can look at many things that maybe aren't even possible to produce, but the resource impact is very low, but the creativity aspect is very high. And I just think that's absolutely phenomenal, that amount of goodness that we have to change the natural world and understand things and end up producing something that's very delightful and efficient, or whatever the things are. So I want to take you through some examples. And this one is for Insomniac, and they're using digital twins to build like a cross-platform metaverse capability that could be on PC, mobile, or like a game console. And they have festivals around the world and thousands of events globally. And the idea is that you can kind of be here there. So you can immerse yourself in an event without necessarily being there, but also get ready for the event. And then using these metaverse experiences, you can do like real world concerts in real-time 3D and kind of have like a more immersive surround feel, and look at streaming and avatars. And I have some cool avatars to show too. But you can do that participating in the event or remotely, and then augment the event. And this also brings people with disabilities into the mix, that maybe they couldn't physically attend, but now they can still have these amazing experiences and be entertained as well. And another aspect, I come from automotive, which Kat mentioned, but I'm kind of like building up to that. So like the thought of all of the uses of the twin are pretty awesome. And so one of them with the fashion and consumer industries is like every product can have a digital twin of it. And now you can experience personalized products from and follow it from the inception, the idea of the materials that will be used and how it's produced, all the way to how it appears on a site. So if it's a handbag or shoes or whatever those things are, and also do some augmented reality try-on. And digital try-on is a big focus now in the fashion industry because there's tremendous waste in returned items. And so a 3D digital twin of every brand asset enables this realistic representation, and products can be sold through these interactive media and basically deployed and embedded across web, mobile, AR, on social, and all of those good things. And so the digital twin of the product and then a digital twin of the process applies throughout multiple industries, which I think is really cool. And then things can become more personalized by creating like virtual try-ons with digital humans that represent the person's real self. So you can have like multiple images and then just like actually make an avatar of you and make purchase decisions that are more accurate to limit returns and mitigate the environmental footprint of e-commerce. And then to take part in these tailored experiences, you can have that your own personal avatar, and then you can use that to try things on. And there's actually technology that will drape fabric on you and give you more of a form. So it's like another version of a digital twin that is like more personal because it's you, and then more personal because it fits your body. So the clothing industry is really going toward this to try to, like I said, mitigate that the amount of returns that they get, and the I think a lot of that those returns aren't resold, so there's a a huge impact that way. And so this is a digital human, and I think this is I don't know, it's really awesome. I'll just say that. Like if you just look at her and like what she's, how she's moving, and just think that all of that is a digital human and none of it is real. And this person doesn't exist. Like, and we can get to the point where we can scan us. Like I'm just shocked. My new iPhone has a 48 megapixel camera. Like there's a lot we can do to make these things really exciting. And then the environments that you go in can be pretty cool too with digital twins. So like this is an experience that Unity did with Dyson, and it's basically you put on a VR headset and you're in this environment, and you can choose like which of their vacuums that you might fit your need. And then it can go into an augmented reality environment and let you like experience your home and like see how it fits and gets under things. And there's actually a tent one where you can lay in the tent and see it overhead, and for a different customer, but all kinds of things that allow you to bring the showroom to you instead of like going somewhere and spending that time and the energy to do that. So there's a lot of cool things there. And then like the idea of the like the paper circular in newspapers are not out there much anymore, but you still get those circulars. But a lot of grocery stores are using augmented reality, and they're tailoring the purchase decisions of the customer with recipes, and then suggesting quantities so that they buy the right amount and they limit food waste, and of course limit paper to not present these circulars anymore to homes. So hopefully we're all getting less of those in our mailbox. And then there's also an aspect of digital twin as a storytelling platform. And I love this because I think that everything is a story. Like during product creation, like my work I did at Ford, it was like the story of engineering, the story of design, and then the customers have stories as well. And so for Lululemon, they were looking to branch out into the male clothing market, and they had very high success with women, and they were looking at how can we engage men and talk with them about the like the different aspects that you might wear their clothing. And so they had this experience for like a peaceful experience that would be like mentally strengthening and emotionally fulfilling. And it was like this mindfulness approach that you can go into the store and experience like what you would do when you were wearing their clothes. And I think that was actually a very very successful, and it was deployed in the Vancouver, Canada area. And it was, I think it's still being used. It's pretty great. And then there's things for like furniture and appliance, so do they fit in your home? And can you, this is a digital twin of a microwave, and like you can do it in augmented reality through your tablet, all of those good things. And then also navigating through the store, like just an efficient way to allow somebody to move from place to place. Where do I go for different things that I need when I'm in the store? And then that's also very exciting. And now in the medical industry, they're digital twins of humans, digital twins of equipment, and then the processes and the experiences are also twinned. So the digital twin is their approach in medical is to really form a partnership in the ecosystem so that it can be used for training. So you twin an operating room, for instance, and then the equipment that's in it, of course, and then the people and their functions come together and then perform their functions, and they can be trained in those environments. And they also, digital twins of real people are used from like diagnostics, the tests that you get, to do pre-surgery, so that when surgery happens, like especially brain surgery, the brain surgery has already happened in the digital world before the brain surgery happens on the physical patient, to allow that, not practice, but I don't know what they call it, but just doing it once so that when it happens, it's very smooth, and the surgeon knows what to do. And that's very common now, is making a twin of somebody's anatomy in order for them, for the physician and the surgeon to practice and understand what's coming when the surgery does happen. And then also for training in high stakes emergency scenarios. This is like multiplayer. So if you think about, like, Unity is like a game engine, but it's very much more than that, but it does allow multiple people to act. And so part of twinning an environment, a world, is also twinning, the roles that multiple people have. And so when collaboration is absolutely necessary, that people all understand their role, because this is an emergency situation. This is a really good use case for a digital twin, so that you can monitor like the people's judgment, the prioritization of care, delegation of tasks, and how they perform under stress, and then use that training to improve like the responsiveness and in these critical situations, because when there's so little time to act. Okay. And so, yeah, there's sorry, I didn't do the video. Okay, I have to, all right, so on to Ford. So I worked at Ford for like 30 years, did lots of stuff. And I just want to provide a very few examples, but one is like the amount of realism that you can get. So what I pioneered there was using digital twins before they were, kind of cool. And also using something called real-time ray tracing and global illumination, which is basically the way of saying it looks really real and it responds appropriately. So when you're like and doing that in a virtual environment, so there'd be like this empty room, but it was filled with this virtual car, and teams could get in and evaluate the vehicle in the immersive environment and see it with proper lights and shadows. And as they turn and move, the lights and shadows change ever so slightly, like you would expect them to in the real world. But like I said, when I first started talking about how to cheat the natural world, so to speak, you can have this vehicle and then modify it again and put it in like next to the like on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu on a overcast day, and then put it in downtown Berlin at night. and then, put it in all these different lighting conditions, and then see how the vehicle looks under those different conditions. Then you can also say, okay, now I want to change this and make it 3 Sigma capable of a manufacturing process instead of 6 Sigma. So what happens when quality starts to deviate? And then what is like a showstopper, like we can't go beyond this. So now you can start checking the manufacturing process and put it on the design. And so if you think about all of the stories I told ahead of this, those same concepts hold true, whether it's a vacuum cleaner, items in a grocery store, like shelving placement, or cars. Like that digital twin is there for everybody to see, understand, and then collaborate and come together. And I just wanted to show this picture really quick, but this is like where my roots are. So this is back in 1999, and that's me. That's a wood car that I'm sitting in because the tracking was magnetic, so you couldn't have any metal in the environment, which is a problem with cars. And then if you look on those screens, look at how like awful the data looks. Like it was really, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and I understand the benefits, and I love the tech, and I've loved it like for decades. But the way that if I was going to show one chart that kind of represented what a digital twin can do for for industry, this is it. You just basically take all of the people, all of the work that they're doing, and all of these vertical functions, and then you represent their function in the context of everybody else's function. And that's incredibly powerful, because now design can understand something that manufacturing is trying to say. And the way they say it is through how it appears on the product that's being twinned. And that's just so cool, because what it provides a holistic interface, and it provides a common language that everybody can understand everybody else's point of view. Where normally an engineer would have an Excel spreadsheet, and somebody who's an artist would go, whatever, that doesn't mean anything to me because that's not my world and I don't understand your numbers. But now when those numbers get applied to the design and they see how it changes the final product, and you haven't built a prototype, that's super cool. And now these conversations can happen amongst all of these teams, and you can build up an experience and then break down an experience. And so I wanted to show like kind of like a before and after thing using digital twins. So like automotive design notoriously relies on physical models, and for design throughout the product development process. It used to be like when I started doing this digital twinning, it was 100%. Everything no decision was made at any point in the process without building multiple of these models, which are extremely costly, resource intensive, labor intensive, and usually inaccurate by the time they're built, because the data has actually, the geometry has actually changed. But with the digital twin, you can provide this really great mix of those verticals, like I showed in that one slide. And now a bunch of people can see the same data in many different ways. And so now it's design and user experience and customer clinics and engineering and quality and training and marketing and sales. And you can represent things that can be so personal, that tell that story like I talked about. So now you can take users on a journey. You can even provide heat for that fire. Like we've done that. We've done scenarios where there's this heat lamp there representing where the sun is, because the truck is in the desert. And it's very real when you start like adding those cues. It's like a lot of emotion, but it really brings the design to life. And then you can think about adding that engineering integrity, and now you're just representing so many scenarios so quickly and so accurately, and with such emotion and such accuracy, that it's just fantastic. So the idea is,
I'm going to jump in here, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that we have time for questions.
okay, this is my last slide.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, so basically trying to bring all of these groups together, you can see that representing each one to the other and then connecting those dots. It's kind of taking that vertical and bringing it and showing that connectedness between all of those different approaches. And that's the power of a twin, no matter what industry that it's in. And so, yep, that's it. I appreciate your time, and I would love to answer any questions.